Over the last 6 decades, V8 engines have defined the benchmark for performance cars around the world. In America, the naturally aspirated V8 became the beating heart of the muscle car era, shaping a legacy that still excites car lovers today. Back in the 1960s and 70s, these engines weren't rare at all. Ford, Chevrolet, Chrysler, and Pontiac all had V8s as their go-to power plants. But among the countless V8s produced during that golden era, a few stood out for their exclusivity and experimental design. Some were purpose-built for NASCAR, others for drag racing, and a handful were crafted simply to test the limits of performance engineering. Interestingly, the V8 craze wasn't limited to America. Even European automakers joined in, with Ferrari producing one of the smallest naturally aspirated V8s ever put into production. One of the earliest and most fascinating examples came from Pontiac, which pioneered fuel injection technology for American V8s. The 1954 Bonneville, equipped with Pontiac's 347 cubic inch V8, became the company's first production car to feature a mechanical fuel injection system developed by Rochester, hence the Rochester injection name. Around the same time, Chevrolet offered a similar optional system on the Corvette, but Pontiac had the advantage of including it as standard equipment. The 347 itself was an enlarged version of Pontiac's earlier 317 V8 and could also be ordered with the famous tri-power triple carburetor setup that replaced the older dual quad design. Exact production numbers for the fuel-injected version are unclear, but automotive historians and sources such as Motor City Classic Cars suggest that fewer than 1,000 were built, with roughly 447 installed in 1957 Bonneville convertibles. The rest went into NASCAR stock cars and other limited builds, making this one of Pontiac's rarest engines ever created. Around the same period, Ford was engaged in an intense rivalry with Chrysler, particularly on the NASCAR circuit, where Chrysler's 426 Elephant Hemi V8 was dominating. To challenge it, Ford engineers developed the legendary Cammer engine, a radical single overhead camshaft version of their side oiler block. It replaced the traditional camshaft with an idler shaft and used hemispherical combustion chambers, effectively making it Ford's own version of a Hemi. The engine's design was ahead of its time, featuring stainless steel valves, sodium-filled exhaust ports to handle extreme heat, and an enormous 6-foot timing chain. Although never mass-produced, the 427 SOHC Cammer was used in factory experimental cars like the 1965 Galaxie 500 and the Shelby Cobra. Ford never sold it in production vehicles, but as a crate engine, it became a legend among drag racers. While America was pushing displacement and brute power, a small British firm took a completely different approach. Radical Motorsport engineers combined 2 Suzuki Hayabusa motorcycle engines to create a compact 2.7-liter V8 known as the Radical SR8 engine. Precision engineered for racing, it's one of the smallest and lightest production V8s ever made. Paired with a 6-speed sequential transmission, the SR8 could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 2.8 seconds and reach a top speed of 175 miles per hour. In 2005, it shattered the Nürburgring lap record for a street-legal car, running on specially designed Dunlop track tires. According to Radical's official registry, only 273 units of this engine were ever produced, each hand-built for the SR8 track car. Another rare gem from America was Pontiac's 421 Super Duty V8, a high-revving crate engine built specifically for racing in the 1960s. Only a few dozen were ever produced, with around 155 installed in the Catalina Super Duty and 16 in the Grand Prix SD. The engine featured an aluminum intake manifold and came with 2 carburation options, a single 4-barrel setup for endurance racing, and a dual quad setup that boosted power up to a staggering 468 horsepower. It was a raw, competition-bred monster built for straight-line speed and dominance on the oval tracks. Fast forward to the 1990s, and Ford once again brought back the spirit of high-performance V8s with the 351 cubic inch Lightning engine. Originally developed for the F-150 Lightning truck, this motor was refined and tuned for the 1995 Mustang. Engineers increased its compression ratio to 9.2 to 1, upgraded the camshaft for more aggressive timing, and improved cooling and airflow. The result was 300 horsepower and 365 pounds of torque, a return to old-school muscle power wrapped in a modern body. Taller and more robust than the standard Mustang engine, it filled the gap for enthusiasts who longed for the classic rumble and torque of traditional V8s. Each of these engines, from Pontiac's pioneering fuel-injected V8 to Ford's radical Cammer, and from Radical's compact Screamer to the big American crate motors, represents a unique chapter in automotive history. Together, they define what makes the naturally aspirated V8 not just a power plant, but a symbol of innovation, passion, and pure mechanical artistry. To make room for the massive engine upgrade, the 1995 Mustang SVT Cobra R featured a prominent hood bulge reminiscent of classic drag racers. Its power was delivered to the rear wheels through a Tremec 3550 5-speed manual transmission, paired with a shorter 3.27 final drive ratio for sharper acceleration and control. Among the rarest high-performance V8s ever built was Chevrolet's legendary L88. Produced for only 3 years, the L88 appeared exclusively in Corvettes of the late 1960s. Although it shared its 427 cubic inch block architecture with other Chevy engines, the L88 was in a league of its own thanks to its reinforced internals and race-ready tuning. It featured a forged steel crankshaft, heavy-duty connecting rods, and lightweight aluminum pistons mounted on floating pins to minimize friction. Its compression ratio of 12.5:1 made it one of the most aggressive production V8s of its time, while a solid lifter camshaft with a massive 0.584-inch lift allowed for incredible airflow and power. Extensive use of aluminum, especially in the cylinder heads, shaved nearly 70 pounds from the overall engine weight. The result was a true race-bred machine, officially underrated at 430 horsepower, but capable of far more on the track.
Ford's answer to such performance came in the form of the 427 Top Oiler. Introduced in 1963 as a re-engineered version of the 390 V8, the Top Oiler earned its name from its unique oil delivery system, which routed oil to the camshaft and valve train before reaching the crankshaft. A later variant, known as the Side Oiler, reversed that flow for improved durability under extreme loads. Built with a thickened cast iron block and a forged steel crankshaft, this engine was designed purely for competition. It powered the limited edition 1964 Fairlane Thunderbolt, a drag strip beast of which only 100 were made. These lightweight Fords were brutally quick, hitting 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 4.4 seconds, an astonishing feat for their era. Then came the 1969 Chevrolet ZL1 Camaro, widely regarded as one of the most powerful American muscle cars ever built. Conceived by Fred Gibb and Dick Harrell, the ZL1's all-aluminum V8 was a re-engineered version of the Corvette's L88, featuring significant reinforcements such as cast-iron cylinder sleeves, strengthened bearing bulkheads, and extended bolts for added stability. Originally ordered through Chevrolet's special COPO program, only 69 ZL1 Camaros were ever produced. With performance aimed directly at Chrysler's 426 Hemi, the ZL1's 430 horsepower engine made the car an instant legend. Today, a ZL1 in concourse condition can fetch upwards of $850,000, a testament to its rarity and historical significance. Another hidden gem from Chevrolet's lineup was the 1963 Impala Z11. This special version transformed the Impala from a comfortable cruiser into a competition-ready powerhouse. The Z11 package enhanced the 427 V8 with a longer stroke, dual 4-barrel carburetors, and a 2-piece aluminum intake manifold. A redesigned induction system and a sky-high compression ratio of 13.5:1 pushed output to around 430 horsepower and 575 pound-feet of torque. Built specifically for drag racing and NASCAR, the Z11 Impala was a factory-built sleeper that defied expectations, merging brute strength with engineering precision. Pontiac's entry into this exclusive club was the mythical Ram Air 5, arguably the most powerful engine the company never officially mass-produced. Only about 25 of these experimental V8s were ever built and sold as crate engines. Pontiac had initially planned 4 versions: a 5-liter V8 for the Trans Am, a 6-liter version for NASCAR, a 6.5-liter for the GTO and Firebird, and a monstrous 7-liter variant for drag racing. The rarest of them all, the 5-liter Ram Air 5, found its way into a few street cars, including a 1969 Trans Am 303 that later sold at auction for $143,000. Pontiac designed the Ram Air 5 to outperform the famous Chrysler 426 Hemi, but changing racing regulations and poor timing kept it from reaching full production. Finally, among all naturally aspirated small block V8s, none is rarer than Chevrolet's 302 Hemi. Originally developed for the SCCA Trans Am Racing Series, which capped engine displacement at 302 cubic inches, the engine powered the first-generation Camaro Z28. However, famed NASCAR mechanic Smokey Yunick pushed the design even further, experimenting with hemispherical cylinder heads, unique pistons, and revised intake and exhaust systems. Only 3 prototypes of the 302 Hemi are known to exist. One of them, installed in a 1968 Camaro, remains the only verified example of its kind, a one-off engineering marvel that represents the peak of Chevy's small block experimentation. These extraordinary machines, from the aluminum ZL1 to the compact Hemi 302, define the spirit of innovation that shaped the golden age of V8 power. They were not built for mass appeal, but to push mechanical boundaries. Each engine tells its own story of risk, competition, and craftsmanship, and together they remind us why the naturally aspirated V8 remains one of the most celebrated creations in automotive history.